I feel like doing something different for today's show. For you see, if you're not aware already because you're some sort of reclusive hermit and you've been living under a mossy rock for the past 30 years or so, video game franchises have spread their inspirations and ideas across all the entertainment mediums, which is why we see film series, comic book series, and, most commonly, television shows featuring our favourite video gaming protagonists. But I'm sure you've seen loads of other videos tackling this sort of topic before, and they've pretty much covered all of the obvious choices for TV shows to look at. The Super Mario Bros. Cartoon? Done. The Legend of Zelda cartoon? Done. The numerous Sonic cartoons, they've probably all been done. And even more obscure ones such as the Kirby and the Donkey Kong Country TV shows have been done as well. But surely, not everything's been covered yet. There's gonna be another TV show out there that attempts to milk the golden teats of a beloved video game franchise to gain publicity and profits. Which one though? Oh, fuck.
Yes, believe it or not, people attempted to create an animated cartoon series based on the world of Rayman, everyone's most beloved blonde, banged, limbless hero of dreams. Try saying that 5 times fast. Made by a mostly French outfit, given that Rayman originates from Montpellier in southern France, it was a fully 3D animated TV show like what Donkey Kong Country, attempted to be. That did its broadcast run from December of 1999 all the way through to January of 2000. Well, sacre bleu! What the bloody hell happened here then? It turns out that due to what's quoted as poor writing and a lack of funding despite heavy financial backing from Canadian government, the show was pulled and cancelled only a few episodes into its intended 13-episode first series. This means that there was only ever 4 episodes aired, and after that, zip. Nada. Bunkers. Jack shit. And one of the crucial reasons as to why this show was so unheard of was that the broadcast never made it outside of Europe. In fact, the only countries it seemed to reach were France, Germany, and the Netherlands. But despite this, rare English dubs of these episodes can be obtained through VHSs or DVDs, or just from full episode uploads to YouTube if you don't fancy spending small fortunes on them.
This is going to be an interesting little romp, I think. I'm intrigued to find out what sort of things I'm going to be exposed to while watching this, and I'm also excited to potentially find out why the show might have been cancelled so early. I mean, was it really that bad? Well, there's only one way to find out. Action!
The first episode is titled Lac Mac Napping, and opens onto a large flying circus tent laying anchor in a forest clearing to put on a show for the locals. Our performers and our cast for this series include Bettina, voiced by a number of different people for some unexplained reason, including Lacey Chabert at one point. You know, this Lacey Chabert, this Lacey Chabert. Oh, the places you'll go! We also have a small fairy named Flips, and this retard offspring of rabbit and a kangaroo called Lac Mac, billed as a star performer. But unfortunately for these guys, along with another character named Cookie, they're all prisoners made to perform for the circus's owner named Rigatoni. He also has himself a right-hand man, who turns out to be... Wait a second! Admiral Razorbeard?
Okay, now I'm legitimately confused here. Well, why choose Razorbeard as your right-hand man when he is the primary antagonist of his very own Rayman game? I mean, did the writers just arbitrarily throw him in there just to have more recognisable Rayman characters in this whole series without any regard as to who Razorbeard actually was?
And holy hell, what did you do to his looks? You've turned him into some sort of damn redneck with his goofy teeth. What did they do to you, Razy? Meanwhile, we still haven't seen Rayman at all yet. But then it turns out that he is the circus's latest slave acquisition as Razorbeard and Rigatoni attempt to make him do some circus tricks. But of course, being the cheesy wisecracking son of a bitch that he is, he has a bit of fun messing about with Razorbeard's head. But that voice of his seems weird. Who was it that voiced Rayman here? Just give me a second.
Right then, so it turns out our lead guy was voiced by... Billy West? The Billy West? The one and the same Billy West? Why is Billy West doing this show? I mean, was he on the dole around this time? Was he just desperate for the work? I mean, and I think most importantly, why has he made Rayman sound so obnoxious? I mean, I've never wanted to punch a really famous guy I'll probably never meet in real life before, but... yeesh.
Maybe we'll feed you. Oh, thanks anyway. I had a big lunch.
You know, that line does get me thinking. How is Rayman able to eat without an invisible trachea for his food to go into his stomach through? I mean, it's just something I've always wondered.
Anyway, back in the cages, the crew decide to escape the circus after finding out about Lackmac's super strength, and the chase is on as they leap out of the flying tent to freedom. Rigatoni then orders a police detective on the ground named Grub to catch Rayman and company. Meanwhile, the next morning, Rayman and friends make their way into the nearby city and procure a car from a mechanic, which concludes the first episode. Next up is no parking, as if the fact that the car scene before was going to be relevant wasn't fucking clear enough. And sure enough, it doesn't take long for the cars to become relevant as Detective Grub spots the band and gives chase in his police car.
Where'd you learn to drive? The circus?
By the way, thumbs up if you recognise the box of toys that Grub crashes into as Ed from Tonic Trouble. After getting away, Rayman ditches the car and the band head into the nearby park for safety. Flips then finds a teddy in a trash can, but after being ignored when she tries to show everyone else, she heads back to the car. Bad move on her part as a tow truck comes along shortly after to pick up the car with her inside it. And with no means of transport, the band goes to the nearby train station to catch a train to the car impound. But unfortunately, they attract the attention of Detective Grub and have to make a getaway. I'm not so sure that the train is really a safe mode of transportation in this city. But it gets them to the scrapyard anyway, where their car is about to be destroyed by— oh my god, what's that thing? Evil spirits be gone! The power of Christ compels!
How's anybody supposed to find anything in here?
They don't. That's why it's called a scrapyard.
Yeesh. Still the annoying wise guy, even when one of his friends is about to be digested by this demon Cyclops cow of doom. Seriously, this thing's fucking terrifying and I don't need to see it again that close. Just say flips already so I don't need to see this monstrosity ever again.
Go get her!
Excuse me?
Go get her!
Could you say that again for me, please?
Go get her!
Yeah, one more time, please.
Go get her!
Yeah, I've got no fucking clue either.
So then Grub shows up to apprehend the gang when Lackmac appears in a huge steamroller to save the day, adding some comic foil.
Sorry, Cookie.
And they're about to escape. But unfortunately, retard rabbits can't drive that well, which forces Rayman to use his helicopter hair ability to save the gang from falling off a cliff. But they're all too heavy for him, and they eventually crash into an abandoned apartment, which they immediately call home, and which happens to be directly above Detective Grub's apartment. There's a sitcom if ever I saw one. Third episode, High Anxiety. We start out with Cookie cementing himself as the absolutely annoying whinging sod of the bunch by apparently suffering a headache, and the rest of the gang gives him trouble for it.
Maybe it's that brain tumor acting up again. Maybe you have an alien living in your head.
Alien?
Until Rayman finally steps in.
Although this is pretty amusing, it has to stop. You should go to the doctor.
So off they go to see the doctor, and this one should really have a checkup for his wall clock over there. I mean, look at that.
Cookie, go bye-bye.
I don't know whether to find this adorable or insanely creepy. Probably the latter.
G-U-R-A-Q-T-I-N-V-U. Ooh, I don't blame you. I am pretty good looking.
Okay, credit where it's due. That one did get a little laugh from me.
The doctor later reveals to Cookie that the pain isn't real and he is actually fine, apart from diagnosing him as criminally insane and committing him to an insane asylum. Nope, still not adorable, it's just creepy. In the reception area, Rayman and company hatch a plan to bust Cookie out of the asylum by following in after Detective Grub, who is also here making a visit. Now in the main corridor of the asylum, they set off on their own ways to try and find Cookie, often running into many of the asylum's patients.
And I don't share my jello!
Whoa, lady, you alright there?
Now go fast!
Gesundheit.
You see, Cookie? You like cookies too? Help me with this coat and I'll show you where they keep the cookies.
Bad touch! Bad touch! There could be danger! I need an adult! Ah! So Cookie is eventually found hanging out with one of the other patients, but this woman is who Grub is here to see. Hang on, she's Grub's mother? I don't see the resemblance. Whilst in the room, he eventually figures out who Cookie is, and the chase is on again. Well, this isn't a subtle reference gag at all. With the help of the same patient, however, the gang are able to outsmart Grub once again and escape the asylum through the laundry chute, whilst Grub later gets confused for one of the patients and locked up with his mother.
Now.
Go fish!
Okay, this woman scares me. Next episode! Big Date starts out like a normal day for the gang. Wondering about the whereabouts of Detective Grub, given that his apartment is directly below theirs, Cookie builds a periscope device that lets them see below the floorboards.
Voila! Cookie, this is the best thing you invented since sliced bread.
That can't be a true fact. That's historically inaccurate. But sliced bread is kind of a wonderful thing.
And with this little doohickey, they eventually catch Grub holding a bouquet of flowers and sprucing his place up for what turns out to be a date. So was that sound effect just there randomly, or is there actually purpose to it being there, because I don't fucking know. Rayman and company watch on intently, hoping that if the date goes well, then Grub won't bother them as much. But because of nerves, Grub ends up being a bit of a foul bachelor to the woman.
Sorry. Ooh, 30 years bad luck.
Oh my god. That line, with that image of her spread-eagled on the floor, is this not a little bit of a loaded statement, don't you think? I mean, is it meant to be like this, or is it just me with my dirty mind reading all this as a sexual thing?
And he's especially cocking it up in the cooking department, burning the dinner and dropping it all over the floor.
He's wearing the appetizer, and it doesn't even go with his outfit.
Ha ha ha! Rayman then suggests that the gang help out with the date in secret so they don't get captured, including giving the place a really good clean. They then sneak into the kitchen whilst Grub and the lady share a conversation.
Sorry about my speeding.
You were going 65 in a 35 zone.
Thanks for not giving me a ticket.
Okay, is this the length people go to nowadays to not get speeding tickets? Here I am thinking just flashing your bits was enough to get you out of it. That's the more regular thing to do, and I mean it's just the extra effort to then go on a date with the police officer, and I'm reading too much into this. Let's move on.
After seeing the awful food that Grub was going to serve, Rayman and Bettina arrange for a reluctant Cookie to go down into the kitchen and make a meal based on his culinary skills seen at the beginning of the episode. Well, I've got to admit, that cooking is really giving me an appetite just looking at it, and I've lost my appetite. But then Lack Mac drops a load of plates by accident, causing Grub to investigate the kitchen. But the gang gets out in time, leaving Grub to pass off the good food left behind as his own. And the date is saved.
Or is it?
No, Grub, don't do it!
But in one final attempt to keep the romance alive and hopefully keep Grub out of their lives, Rayman goes off to the lady's house to arrange a new date for Grub with something called a singing telegram.
Da-da-da-da-da-da. Sorry for the date, hope I'm not too late. The date went so wrong, so I wrote this song. These flowers are to make up for the sorrow. How about the movies tomorrow?
that was a really good song.
And that's it for this episode, and indeed the entire cartoon series, because it was after this episode got aired that the show was unfortunately pulled.
Well, that was certainly a really interesting series to look at. I mean, most of you guys at home have probably already judged this for yourself, whether you think it was good or bad or whatever, and I'm guessing the majority of you are saying that it wasn't really that good of a show. But what about from the point of view of somebody who was watching this at the same time it was being aired? Let's break it down a little bit.
The usual thing to do in a video like this will be to pull up the show's opening title sequence at some point to have a look at that, but it turns out that it's nearly impossible for me to find one for this particular show if there even was a title sequence for it, so it's really hard to gauge a viewer's first impression upon seeing the show for the first time. But since 3D animation was becoming more prolific in film and media at the time, it would have been almost a no-brainer for the makers of this show to use that technology, and that probably would have been a big selling point, especially given that by this point the technology would have had time to mature and improve from earlier efforts in recent years. Kind of like a good cheddar cheese. So what about the animation for this particular show? Well, honestly, it is a passable looking show, but it's got its fair share of issues. I think lip syncing and mouth animations are the biggest problem though. You might have seen this for yourself, so I won't delve too much into it, but suffice it to say that even for this time period, it could have been vastly better than this. Also, I'm not entirely convinced that someone, especially a young kid, could watch this show and see some of the character designs, modelling and environments without feeling a little bit sick. Most of the background cast all have these spindly, disproportionate body shapes, and generally they all just look ugly. And as for the show's writing, which remember is cited as one of the main reasons for the show's early cancellation mind you, I'm afraid I can sort of see why. Only a handful of lines got some positive reaction from me. The majority of the rest of the writing was predictable, cliched, and not too engaging to say the least. And I don't know if it's just just me on this matter, but whatever the vocal director told Billy West to do for Rayman's voice wasn't the right thing to tell him to do. We end up with a Rayman who sounds far too obnoxious than what I'm comfortable with, and the rest of the characters have voices that seem a bit too stereotyped for their characteristics. But I think the biggest kick in the teeth is the serious lack of attention paid to the source material from the original Rayman video games. All we get that's recognizable from the games is Rayman and Razorbeard, even with the ass-backward way he's written into the story. And that's it? Sorry, but I'm not okay with this. Glowbox? Nowhere. Lee the Fairy? Nada. Teensies? Pfft, what the fuck even are those, am I right? I can't believe that these better established characters are simply tossed aside for these absolute randomers. I'm sorry, I just can't fathom it, really.
But I am being a bit too negative here. I mean, for all the show's problems, in the end it's just a harmless TV cartoon. It never did anything outlandishly bad, and it's got some good fleeting moments here and there.
And for all the flack I've given to the new characters, it is a shame that the show was cancelled when it was, because those guys might have had some interesting storylines lined up. Remember Rigatoni from the first episode? Was he ever going to make a comeback later in the series, as well as Razorbeard? And heck, some of the more recognisable Rayman characters could have been written in for later episodes. But at this point we seemingly don't know, and unfortunately unless some big revelation happens, it looks like we may never know.
So in the end, all I can say for the Rayman TV cartoon is that it was kind of an underperforming show, and based on what they were able to release, I can unfortunately see why they canned it so early. But again, it is a shame that they did, because for all we know it could have reached new heights and gotten even better with its planned material. But the stuff that we did get to see is harmless nonetheless, and it's worth a full watch if you seriously want to see what the show is like for yourself. But as for me, I don't think it's that great a cartoon, and I would just stick to the video games for now at least. But what about all of you lot watching this at home? Let me know what you made of the cartoon in your comments below, and until next time, all I can say now is stay you and stay awesome, and I will see you all later on.
And a big supermassive hello to you all, thanks again for watching my video on the Rayman TV cartoon. This was a really fun and interesting episode to make, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed watching it as much as I did making it. If you liked this video, be sure to let me know by giving it a like, a favourite, maybe leaving a comment down below, or maybe sharing it about with your friends. If you want to see more of my stuff, I've linked 2 of my recent videos up in the annotations here. The left one will take you to my most recent Rapid Ramble video, which is on an interesting PC game called Karma Flow, and the one on the right will take you to my most recent countdown video, where I show you what I think to be the top 10 worst Eggman piloted machines from all the Sonic the Hedgehog games. And if you seriously want to see more stuff from me in the future, consider subscribing to the channel. That way you can be among the first to see all of my new content as and when it gets made and uploaded. But until then, thanks again for watching this video, stay you and stay awesome, and I will see you all later on.